Good afternoon. So welcome to another Living Histories. And before we start, on behalf of the committee and of course all of ourselves, we'd like to acknowledge we're on Araluen land and acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land and the leaders, past, present and emerging. So lovely to see you all again. There's regular participants, it's very exciting. And I'm here to talk about the Piano Festival, which is coming up. So all of you know that we fundraised to get a beautiful Yamaha grand piano, which currently resides in Araluen, and we got to pay $50,000 for an $80,000 grand piano. So it's very exciting. And we wanted to honour that, but we also wanted to do something that's very dear to all of the committee's hearts, which is to really celebrate the world-class Araluen theatre and, of course, having a piano, but also offering people an opportunity, particularly younger people or non-professional musicians who aren't used to being on the grand stage. So to that end, we're having a piano festival. So it's from September the 13th to the 15th, and there's posters on your tables and more posters. So on the Friday night, we've got Harshini Buller and Marg Collins. So Harshini's a celloist. We've got Marg Collins, who a lot of you know. We've got Ivory and Blue featuring Dan the Underdog, so I think there's an electric harp in that ensemble. We've got it's an eclectic night. We've got students who are practising for their finals, so Ayla Bailey and Ella Alia, they're sisters, and we've got and Thomas van der Geest Hester and Carol Adams, so they're going to do something. Shada Navidi, Madonna Tomes, Emmy Ryan and Ben Stern. And that's on the Friday night. And so that's a completely different feel to the Saturday night. And on the Saturday night, it's a bit of a showcase of mostly professional musicians in Alice Springs. And one special guest, Alma Zeiger, who comes from Melbourne. And for those of you who are past a certain age as me, then this is Deborah Conway's daughter. And she's just, I know, ooh. We also, when we advertised, found a concert pianist who'd moved to Alice Springs. So we could have paid €8,000 for a concert pianist, or there's one living in Alice Springs. So Marcel Angles is going to give us some Chopin. And then we've got people we know, Dave Crow, Cassie Williams, Darcy Davis, and somebody you might know, Kemi Ogendi. So that's going to be a great night. And the Living History on the Sunday. So Martin Tucker's the piano tuner and he's come here a lot, and his partner Natalia Luxa. And we're not going to have the grand piano here because you can't bring it through, but we'll have another piano, an upright. And Martin's going to combine playing, chatting about his adventures as a piano tuner, but also he's going to talk to us about how a piano works, which when the original piano tuner that came with a piano talked to us one night when we were sitting around at Anne and Bill's place, and it was just fascinating. So we thought, actually, people might like to know how a piano works and why it's a stringed instrument and all that sort of stuff. So that's going to be a combination of that. And Natalia Luxa, his partner, is a filmmaker, and she filmed, her first film was called was The Piano Tuner, and it was about Martin. And her second film we're going to see some excerpts of, and a lot of that, I'm not sure of all the content, but one of the most fascinating things for Yamaha in particular was that They'd never seen a community group raise money for a piano. They'd never seen that happen. This was during COVID, and because of that, he held that prize. And so Natalia was fascinated by that story and the amount of work that went in to raise so much money. So that's going to be a combination, and that's on the Sunday. So we hope to see you all there and your smiling faces. And bring, as Phil Walcott would say, bring a friend on each end. I think there's a phone. Is it my phone? No, it's a blue backpack ringing. Who's blue backpack? Oh, okay. It's still ringing for Anne. Okay, so I'm going to introduce Stephen Williamson. Now, he's the curator of Araluen and has been the curator for quite a while. And I hope you took the opportunity to go and see the exhibition Groundswell, because it was just astonishing, which was an exhibition of not all of Araluen's art, of course, but of Araluen's art over 40 years, because we're still celebrating 40 years of Araluen. So why don't we give Stephen a round of applause.
Thank you, Karlika. It's a great honour to be here today, actually, and amongst friends, colleagues and other people who have presented at the Living Histories event. So you know what it takes to do this. So it's a lot of work, but it's a lot of fun. I want to acknowledge that we are in Aranda country as well, and pay my respects to elders past and present, and amazing to be here at Araluen and surrounded by important Aranda sites. I also want to acknowledge my fellow presenters, Phil and Josie. It's particularly wonderful to have you here, Josie, and to be presenting alongside you today. I hope you can hear me okay. I've got your little piece here on so you can hear. Is that working okay, Josie? Great. And I want to thank the Friends of Araluen for inviting me to speak today. It's a great and unexpected honour. So today I'll be talking about my role as curator at Araluen. The Groundswell exhibition, there's a photo there of the opening of Groundswell, which I curated over the last 18 months. And I also want to share with you the path I've taken to get to this point where I am today. This path is interwoven with my partner, Sam Tony, who's in the front row here and supporting me through this, which is great. Sam has been fundamental to my career in the visual arts, which spans 30 years. Sam continues to be the most important figure in my life and provides endless encouragement and guidance. So well, thank you in advance, Sam. We moved to Mparntwe in 2008, the same year I started working at Araluen. I love working here and managing the Araluen collection, the exhibitions program, and being able to work alongside local artists and interstate artists and to contribute to the artistic landscape of the region. Preparing for this talk today has provided the opportunity to identify and reflect on 6 pivotal experiences that have contributed to my ability to realise the Groundswell Araluen at 40 exhibition. Please note some of the images contain friends and colleagues who have passed away, so just warn you in advance. Now, we're not going to start at the very beginning, but this is just really a bit of context. That's me on the left, actually, and my older brother on the right. I was born in Colac in Western Victoria, where I grew up in a pretty typical working class family. It's a small country town, pretty insular, where everyone seems to know each other. It was a good place to grow up, but by the time I'd finished school in 1988, I couldn't wait to leave. When I left school, I started an apprenticeship as a toolmaker with the Ford Motor Company in Geelong. Ford had just released its all-new Falcon. You can see it there on the screen. So it was a busy time at the company, and I felt I was on a great path. Fast forward 4 years, I'd completed my apprenticeship and was working deep within the confines of the Ford factory. There was little natural light or any sense of the outside world. It was noisy, intense. The work was okay, but not particularly fulfilling. However, things took a dramatic turn. I fell in love with Sam Tony. We'd first met growing up in Colac when we were kids. Our parents knew each other. We went to the same primary school. I'm sure Sam won't mind me sharing with you that I had a bit of a crush on her at primary school. I don't have any photos though. We connected in the early 1990s, the stars aligned and we fell in love. However, just after just being together for 4 weeks, Sam announced she was moving to Halls Creek for 12 months. I didn't even know where Halls Creek was, but soon found out it was in the East Kimberley, only 4,000 kilometres away. We committed to a long-distance relationship. It lasted 5 months before I quit my job at the Ford factory, packed up my life, drove to Halls Creek to be with Sam, much to the distress of my parents. It was a spontaneous decision, possibly rash, something you do when you're young, but it changed my life. While in Halls Creek, I started volunteering at the Halls Creek Arts Centre and did a few trips to Warman with the Arts Centre manager to purchase paintings. This is one of the paintings here. At Warman, I met legendary artists like Grover Thomas, Queenie Mackenzie and Jack Britton. I discovered them through the Images of Power exhibition catalogue, the first major exhibition of Aboriginal art from the Kimberley. Sam had introduced me to it. It was her catalogue. The 2 years we spent in the East Kimberley were profound and led me to apply to study fine arts at CDU in Darwin, then the Northern Territory University as a mature age student. We moved to Darwin in the mid-1990s where I completed a fine arts degree, then an honours degree. The art school was a pretty dynamic environment at that time. Many of the lecturers were established artists, including Peter Adsett, Judy Watson, and printmaker Basil Hall, who just recently founded Northern Edition's printmaking studio. Peter Adsett was particularly influential to me and really challenged my understandings of how we see and understand art and the importance of presentation. My time in Darwin influenced and honed my own visual language, particularly for my honours degree exhibition, Losing Ground, which we can see on this slide here. So this was at the CDU Art Gallery, and this was my final exhibition for my honours degree. During this time, I developed an interest in working with artists rather than being an artist myself. So I worked at Frame Gallery in Darwin for 3 years, where I had the opportunity to do this. My interest in working with artists took a leap in 2002 when we went to Balgo in the Tanami Desert to manage Witchettys artists. At the time, Witchettys is one of the leading Aboriginal art centres in the country and home to many prominent artists, including Yuban and Napajin, Elizabeth Newmy, Boxer Milner, Jumpo Japanunka, Patrick Jungarai, Helicopter Jungarai, and Lucy Yukenbarri, and the list goes on. Balgo is remote. It's around 12 hours drive from Alice Springs, has a population of around 300, mostly Kukaja speaking people. We were flown out from Broome, so it was quite a way to arrive. It was daunting and challenging, but also exciting and life-changing. It's been instrumental in shaping who I am today. I worked alongside artists to curate exhibitions and strategically placed them in major galleries for maximum exposure, and facilitated acquisitions of significant works into national collections. Relationships were key during this time with artists, their families, with collectors, institutions, and it also facilitated the meeting of lifelong friends, Pam Lofts and Kim Mahood, both regular visitors to the Tanami Desert and the Arts Centre. It was a formative time for me that really shaped the way I worked with artists, understood art and how I curated exhibitions. The artists were generous and supported us, taught us about country, treated us as if we were extended family. I've always said I was taught how to hug in Balgo. That's Boxer Milner on the left and Jumpo Japananka on the right, teaching us about country, the Wadikajara. There are many highlights from my time at Balgo, but one of the biggest was the Balgo 404 exhibition we staged during Easter 2004. The vision was to elevate the careers of younger artists by exhibiting their works alongside the senior artists to increase exposure, and do it in Balgo no less, and invite major collectors from all over the country to attend. We were riding the wave of success the Arts Centre had achieved and believed people would come if they had the opportunity to purchase major artworks directly from the source. The exhibition was curated over 12 months, consisted of 150 paintings, and enabled the whole community to experience an exhibition in their home community. Of course, there were many challenges, not least being that the Tanami Road connecting Balgo north and south was cut in both directions by heavy rain just days before the big event. Making kangaroo stew for 500 brought its own challenges, as did setting up the 50 tents for people to camp in. In the end, we all rallied, including a large team of volunteers, the Arts Centre committee, the artists, the community, and the collectors. 11 small planes flew the collectors in, and luckily the Tanami Road had opened in one direction on the eve of the exhibition. Some artists went to great lengths to get to Balgo for Balgo 404. This is Elizabeth Newmy, who lived in Billaloona, and she was stranded there because Stir Creek was in flood. But she made her own arrangements to get across Stir Creek and organised for this boat to paddle her across with her paintings. It's a very powerful image. It's almost like the Queen, with the paintings in the back. It's pretty amazing. And so, just a side story in that we had word from Newmy that she was going to do this on a certain day, and so we drove to the crossing, which is about an hour's drive from Balgo, and we were just waiting there, and next minute the car came around the corner. We're towing a boat, put the paintings in the boat, Newmy hopped in and made our way across. Pretty memorable moment. The Balgo 404 exhibition was an overwhelming success, and across the weekend $420,000 worth of art was sold. After Balgo, we lived briefly in Sydney, where I was fortunate to work as a proprietor at the Museum of Contemporary Art for a year. The first exhibition I worked on was the Paddy Bedford Retrospective, continuing my East Kimberley connection. I also worked on 2 Sydney Biennales while I was there, travelling back for one from here after I'd started at Araluen. This is an installation image of the Paddy Bedford Retrospective. In 2008, we moved to Alice Springs. We'd visited a few times when we were at Balgo and were inspired by its energy, uniqueness, opportunities to work cross-culturally and the vibrant arts community, and thought it would be a great place to live. We came for 5 years. We've been here for 16. So we didn't know many people. Pam, of course, who soon introduced us to the arts community. By a stroke of luck, my first job was to coordinate the 2008 Alice Prize at Araluen. Pam, who had become my curatorial mentor, had recommended me to the Art Foundation for this role. Although a little daunting, it was an important moment and opportunity. Pip McManus won that year with her emotive AV work, iCore. Later in 2008, I became Araluen's collections officer and have been the curator since 2011. One of the first projects I conceived as curator was Unique Perspectives in 2012, an exhibition that celebrated 40 years of Mparntwe artists. It consisted of 80 paintings loaned from the Alice Springs community and was a unique reflection on the way the community has supported Mparntwe artists across its history and is so entwined in its story. Amazing exhibition to work on and just great celebration of the community and just great to connect with the community and loan works for this amazing celebration. Across my 13 years as curator, I've curated over 25 exhibitions from the Araluen collection. The gallery has become my canvas where I experiment and aim to create thought-provoking exhibitions while honing my installation aesthetic. I've also curated the installation of many exhibitions, including Desert Mob, the Alice Prize, travelling exhibitions, and have collaborated with many local artists in the realising of their exhibitions. It's been an incredible journey. Here's a couple of the exhibitions I've been lucky enough to work on. I drew on all this previous experience and learning to conceive the exhibition Groundswell, Araluen at 40. It's by far the most ambitious project I've undertaken as curator and the largest exhibition ever staged, celebrating the Araluen collection. Yesterday I was treated to a special lunch made by close friends in celebration of Groundswell. It was a generous gift and an opportunity to reflect on the exhibition and the importance of it, not only for Araluen, but more importantly for the community. Someone asked me what I had learned from Groundswell. It was a good question. I've learned so much, but what I think sits most strongly with me is how important the Araluen collection is to our community. They're so intertwined, integral to each other. One couldn't exist without the other. So ultimately, what I have learned is Groundswell harnesses and celebrates all the connections, relationships, artists, art movement, stories and knowledge that reflect the amazing artistic landscape of Central Australia and how we all contribute to it. Araluen is one part of the story and is able to bring all these amazing connections together through the Araluen collection. So, to begin talking about Groundswell, I want to share with you some of the images of the amazing experiences Groundswell has facilitated with our community and visitors to the region while it was open. Groundswell had a big vision. It needed to, so it could do justice to Araluen's 40th anniversary. It was developed across 18 months and drew broadly from Araluen's extensive collection of 1,350 artworks, as well as artworks it holds on long-term loan. The primary aims included focusing heavily on artists living and working in Central Australia. Artists inspired to visit Central Australia and respond to it through their practice. Bring artworks by Aboriginal and non-Indigenous artists into direct dialogue. Celebrate the important art movements that exist in Central Australia. I also wanted to feature the many significant artworks that have been acquired through important art prizes that were born here. The Caltex Art Award in 1968, developed by the Central Australian Art Society. The Alice Prize in 1970 by the Alice Springs Art Foundation. These artworks are important. However, they often have no connection to the centre other than the fact that they were exhibited here. We're just doing a walkthrough of the gallery while I continue to speak. This was the Namatjira Gallery. How did I go about this? It was a really challenging process. The exhibition had to cover a lot of ground. It was just a big vision. So I spent countless days in the collection storerooms, just doing a deep dive into the collection. And this built on my 16 years of already working with the collection and just drawing on that knowledge of working with artists, working with those artworks and understanding what the artists were doing in those works was really important. I engaged co-curators from Ilchinjara Many Hands Art Centre to help select the Albert Namatjiras for the exhibition and the Hermannsburg School watercolours. I engaged curatorial mentors Peter Adsett, John Keane and Pam Lofts in spirit. I wanted to move away from traditional gallery conventions in the way artworks are grouped, a form of decolonisation of the gallery space. And the idea of 5 guiding currents emerged: catalyst, immersion, collision, divergence, surprise. This gave the exhibition some structure without being prescriptive. It also enabled artists to be featured across different currents rather than being grouped together. It enabled diverse artworks acquired from art prizes to be included. I wanted to present artworks in unexpected ways to create engaging, challenging and thought-provoking connections. The exhibition consisted of over 175 artworks created across 90 years, 155 works from the collection, from the Araluen collection. That's 12% of the collection. The Deputy Director of the National Gallery, when he was here for the opening, Adam Lindsay, he thought that was incredible to have 12% of your collection on display. He just couldn't believe it. He was blown away. The exhibition also included 20 works that are on loan to Araluen, long-term loans, including 9 works loaned specifically from the National Gallery for the exhibition. My colleague Cami was also crucial to the exhibition. She was great to work alongside and brought amazing skill and motivation to its realisation. While the exhibition was open, I delivered twice weekly floor talks. They were really well attended by locals and visitors. I know some of you were there as well. We also had a symposium to launch the exhibition and an artist floor talk to close the exhibition. Groundswell continues in the Albert Namatjira Gallery as an evolving exhibition. Over the coming months, it will change regularly to incorporate new artworks from the collection while still maintaining the overall structure. Please drop by sometime. You'll see changes as you come in. So Groundswell is just an amazing exhibition to work on. Like, it's an amazing privilege to have that opportunity. The response from the community was overwhelming. The connections people have with the works is just so strong. So it's just such a great project to be a part of, and a worthy project for Araluen's 40th anniversary. In closing, I'm delighted to announce that in next year we are bringing the 2024 Archibald Prize to Araluen. It's particularly exciting as it's the first time the Archibald has travelled beyond the eastern states, and something we've been lobbying for to bring it here for a number of years. So it'll be coming next year and it opens in April. It's very exciting. Once again, Araluen continues to punch above its weight in terms of providing amazing art experiences for our community and visitors alike. Thank you very much.
Thanks again, Stephen. It really was magnificent. I'm sure a lot of you got to see and experience for yourself the magnificent Groundswell exhibition. So thanks and congratulations. Really brilliant. We're just going to have a really short break, but I want to make it a bit of an ad break too for the Piano Festival. Karlika mentioned Alma Zigia, and I know some of you heard her at a house concert at Liesl Rothschild's and were really blown away by this amazing young woman, 27 years of age, the daughter of William Zigia, also a musician, and Deborah Conway, her mum. So really don't miss it on Saturday the 14th. So she was backed on that night by a wonderful double bass player and proudly our son Darcy. On the 14th, she'll also have a sax accompanist and a drummer. So the band will be really themselves quite exceptional, and she really is well worth it. So that's the little ad, as well as, of course, to have had a concert pianist present himself and just say, well, I would love to play and I would love to start to meet the music community of Alice Springs. So anyway, the plugs will continue, but bear in mind Saturday the 14th will be really something special. So I'd like to introduce our next speaker, and Phil Walcott's one of those people who, when we're talking about community, he is solid community. Phil is somebody always supporting, always encouraging, always acknowledging, and has a great spirit and sense of community that I think anyone who knows him or knows him well knows that he's a real backbone then for just positively acclaiming this place that we share, that we live in, and the people wanting and supporting the best of who is here and guiding when necessary with his significant counselling and psychology background as well. So, Phil, would you be happiest to sit to talk? You'd be happy to stand? Okay. Yeah. Well, Karlika's a good start. Yeah. This one. It's got a click. Just click on. I can click if you want. It's got to go on your shirt. You can wave at me. I'll stand at the back beside the bar. Want to have a go?
Well, thank you very much, Anne, for that introduction. And it's a real honour and a privilege to have been asked to present here as part of this Living Histories project, because living in Alice Springs is such a wonderful experience, and to be able to promote it at lots of levels, nationally, internationally, she's a bonza place. So I guess to begin with, this is just some reflections on my early childhood and growing up and living where I was living and doing what I was doing. So for those of you familiar with Sydney, I was born in Stanmore in the inner city region in August 1954. And spent my early life, in first 5 years of my life, living at Marrickville at my grandmother's place, where my parents, my dad was in the Air Force up in Richmond, and mum was a stay-at-home mum, and then sometimes a retail assistant in shoe shops and doing other bits and pieces around the place to be able to create enough income for the family. I went to Layla Park Public School from 1959 until 1966, after which I went to Seven Hills High School from 66 to 1972, finishing my year 12. Sort of moved to Wentworthville, so we sort of moved away from Layla Park, and Seven Hills was a working class, lots of fibro, asbestos, little boxes on the hillside, sort of place to live. But it wasn't really my place. I didn't feel I belonged in that place particularly. I didn't know where I otherwise thought I might have belonged, but it just wasn't the right sort of fit for me. So in 1973, I went to Blacktown TAFE College, where I don't know how I did this, but I ended up being the dux of the school in that particular year. I then went on to Westmead Teachers College. I began my professional career as a primary school teacher. And it was starting to acknowledge my gay identity around this time, and sort of looking around and getting a feel. It was not an easy time to be gay in the early 70s in Sydney. There were areas that and things that you couldn't sort of talk about, you couldn't be with, but eventually it sort of got better. I became an activist in the gay rights movement in the early 70s and continued on through there. I did a prac teaching session in Broken Hill, which was pretty amazing experience. And then I started teaching at Yonora Public School, which is sort of southwest Sydney, from 1977 to 78. And one of the things that happened during that time was I sort of had parent-teacher night at one time, and had this little fellow in my class who introduced me to his mum and his grandmother. So I'm sort of shaking hands and saying hello, and as I moved my hand away from the grandmother, she said, oh, you have very interesting palm. I said, oh, okay. Little old Romany gypsy, this lady. You must come for reading. Okay, I'm up for it. I was sort of up for anything, really, that didn't kill me, hopefully. No, she was a real delight. But one thing I took away from that session was when she said to me, you will never have a lot of money, but you will always have enough. I said, yes. I only needed enough. You know, there have been times in my life where I've had enough for a Vegemite sandwich, and then there's other times where I've had enough to fly business and first class around the planet and drive a Lexus. So life was just relative. But from that message going forward, I didn't worry about money anymore. It would arrive somehow. You know, I'd get another job, or, you know, something would happen that would present itself and I'd have enough. So I sort of carried that with me for all of that time. I began an undergraduate degree at University of New England as an external student, and followed by a Masters of Art at Macquarie. This is back in the day where tertiary education was sponsored. Thank you, Gough Whitlam. Thank you to the people, because, you know, my folks, there was no way they would have been able to afford for me to go to university. So, I mean, you still had to work to pass what you were signed up for. But the fact that you didn't have to find all this kind of money. And so I really feel for the young students of today who graduate into a debt of several thousands of dollars. And I look back and think, I was just born, you know, in a lucky part of the journey. So I stayed in Sydney and worked at a couple of high schools as a school counsellor by then. So I'd graduated from being a classroom teacher into being a school counsellor, which was a fantastic job. In August of 93, August. Sorry, I forgot that bit. All right, waving. Something else did in Sydney was, before it was legal, of course, was I got married to another man, Aboriginal man, who is still with us, and it was a real sort of marriage of convenience, I guess you might call it. But it was all part of that sense of being who I am and learning to grow into that, and not sort of being put off by the issues of other people, what other people thought about things. So that's our You're fixing the clicker. You can't hear Maya? Oh, are you all right now? Sure. Right. So this is, here on the left, I'm at a equal rights rally in Sydney. This stuff's actually in a gay and lesbian museum in Darlinghurst. And on the left is myself, in the middle is my former partner, Alan, and next to him is a mutual friend of ours, Phil. So being an activist, and that started pretty early. Like when I was in year 9, our school back in the day didn't have lights inside the building. It was just natural light, and what you got, you got. So I started up a campaign, give us our rights, we want lights. And we stood out the front of the school and we sort of demonstrated with banners, bits and pieces, much to my father's chagrin and dismay. Father was fairly conservative and saw my left-leaning communist tendencies as being a bit of an affront. But anyway, we sort of just massaged our way around that. Okay, and this one is Mardi Gras. I was part of the 78ers crew way back when. And this is Mardi Gras, the 35th anniversary, because Glenn had never been to a Mardi Gras before, so we went down to celebrate. And this is outside the window of a pub on Oxford Street that my sister's boyfriend was managing at that time. So here we are with our rainbow chalking. It was a really passionate place to be, and you'd get involved with the energy that came from being part of this collective that was, very essential. This is when I was a bit thinner than I am. And I guess a celebration. When I first moved here, I'll get to that in a minute, but there was often celebrations at the household, which involved copious amounts of lovely sparkling wine, champagne and white wine. In 1980, I had my first trip to the United States. My former partner was really keen to go and visit the US. And so I thought, well, look, you know what, maybe I can get some brownie points out of this and I can go and visit a couple of schools and find out how things are different in the education system in America and here. So I rang the US Embassy in Sydney and I asked them for the names of 3 schools in Los Angeles and 3 in San Francisco. So they just went to the phone book and went AAA, all right, whatever, put it out there to the universe. Anyway, this gentleman on the left, Michael, he was the only principal that replied. We set up time to visit while I was there, and his wife, Jerry, and Jerry's mum, Zoe. And that began a 44-year relationship with that family. They're wonderful people. Sadly, they've both moved on now. Michael passed away just before Christmas, and Jerry had passed away about 18 months earlier. But it began this connection with the United States and a family. So I became part of a family, certainly on the West Coast. Not as much of a connection for me with the East Coast, with New York, but a place that my sister did. So this is part of the active promotion of Alice's Wonderland, was about, proudly wearing the T-shirt and drumming up conversations with people about what that looked like. And so what is Alice's Wonderland? My sister Jenny and I in, what's it called? Stonewall, thank you. Stonewall in New York. So Jenny's, she's a very passionate supporter of me and things that I do and don't do sometimes. This is inside an apartment that we rented out for a couple of weeks while we were in New York. This is back when it was 50 cents in the dollar exchange rate. So it was an expensive exercise. But hey, who cared? There was always going to be enough money, so it didn't matter. This man was very impressive and important in my journey. I just liked where he came from, what he said, how he said it. His wife, Michelle, for any of you who've had the opportunity to read her book called Becoming, it's well worth a read. She sort of divides it into 3 sections. It's becoming me, becoming us, and becoming more. So they're both, you could see the other day when she was on the dais there with Kamala Harris, and she and Barack sort of embraced each other. And you could see that, this love and this energy between these two people has just been incredibly significant for a number of years. The girls have grown up now and sort of moved on, and they spent 8 of their developing years living in the White House. But I certainly honour this man's legacy. I think he's done a fantastic job. The first president of the United States that I was attracted to was John Fitzgerald Kennedy. I was only 9 when he was murdered, but he had this impact, and it started to rouse this issue around politics and standing up for what you believe in, and moving that kind of stuff forward. So it was about packing it all together and making things happen. So thanks for a clicker. Okay, so on the 26th of August, 1993, that'll be 31 years tomorrow, anniversary, my Alice-versary as I call it. Because I'd gotten back from Europe and figured I needed to find a job to pay for the holiday that I just had. So I went to the local gay pub, the Imperial Hotel in Erskineville, which is where Priscilla, the opening shots of Priscilla are made from. And I picked up a copy of the Star Observer, and in there was this ad for a job as an educator and counsellor at the AIDS Council of Central Australia. So I had a background in both those fields, and so I was fortunate enough to win that job. It also meant that I got to make friendships with people. When I moved in, I moved into 17 Bacon Street in Gillen. We referred to it as Piggy Street. And it was just the most fun. This is Cheryl North, who's here with us today. This was my first Christmas in Alice Springs, and I got to play Santa Claus to a bunch of kids at Kulpitara, community kids, off the back of a motorbike. Why not? This was the sort of thing that happens in Alice Springs. There's just magic that just happens. So that was a really exciting thing, and it's fantastic that Cheryl and I have been able to maintain a close connection with each other over that time. So it was a share house with Cheryl, Janine Wellesby and Linda Lee Wilkie. So Bacon Street had the best parties. We had a toga party one time, and there were no sheets left at the hospital because all the nurses had sort of borrowed them and dressed themselves up. But it was a fantastic toga party. And then there were other celebrations when Priscilla, which was started in the pub at Erskineville, which I was at, and then it came to Alice Springs, and I thought, and I'm here again. So this is my arrival. This is Rita the rough route from Rookwood, escaping the limousine, the snake frock and the bottle of red or pink or whatever it was, it didn't matter. So that was lots of fun, partying on with different friends around the place. Thanks. Oh, there's our Cheryl again. Rose Connolly. Rose was one of my first partners in crime. Here, some of you will remember Rose. She used to drive taxis around town. She was variously involved with the Australian Labor Party here in town, and she was good fun. Rose and I got on very well together. And this is some musings from a whiteboard. When Carlick and I set up Alice is Wonderland, we'd often have workshop weekends away up at Bond Spring Station. And we'd pull out the whiteboard and just create events, ideas, things to just flow, and then we'd transpose that into some sort of logical document. But it was a really important part of the world. There's Miss Carlicker. This is my house on Raggett Street. Gay and lesbian dance parties and events. We wanted to promote Alice Springs as being a wonderful place for people to come and visit, nationally and internationally. This is taken at my previous home, which is where I'd set up the Rainbow Connection. It was a bed and breakfast designed for the gay and lesbian communities globally, so the guests that would come in. This is from one of the dance parties, one of the first, I think, out at Pioneer Park. Yeah. And this was our Alice. She just sort of dressed up for the event. My mum, her connection with me being here was, really important. She loved coming here, and she loved all the people because they just fuss over and take her out to ABC broadcast launches and other bits and pieces. So here again we're at Raggett Street, and this is her one of her aged care support facilities, and that's us at Cousin Ostra. I'm sure people can recognise that. But she was really delighted when Glenn came into my world, and she loved him very much. So there's the man himself, who on 13th of July 2001, so it's just before I went to the United States for another trip, and that's when the towers fell over, and my sister and I couldn't get home because they'd just shut everything down, and it was like, I got to go to the gay games in Amsterdam and also in Sydney. I played tennis, and very proudly wave the Aboriginal flag and have conversation with people around what the flag was and what it represented. And just more hellos. And Rainbow Territory. So we had functions at the Rainbow Connection various times and had people. This is inside the house, just some, this was my housewarming. I didn't want a warm house, I wanted a home glow effect around the place. The Rainbow Connection was fortunate enough to win a tourism award in 2008. Was a return trip, gold class, to Darwin. And we'd been to Darwin heaps of times, so we added on a trip to Thailand out of Darwin, so that the tourism award paid the first bit. But the Gan ride was excellent. I've often liked to train rides, even as a young boy. And this is just a few of us hanging out at Raggett Street. Some of my contemporaries. and Glen Holding Court. we ran an event called Mr. Gay Oz in the Vanessa Wagner she's on the far right, is almost out of picture. So she hosted the event in the backyard at Raggett Street at number 24, because we had 22 and 24 Raggett Street, and pulled the fence down in the middle. It's all right. So just back a bit. You all right? So Glenn on the left and Daniel Ward next to him, and the other young fellow in blue whose name I can't remember, he actually won it. And then Darren on the far right side. So just dancing in the desert, doing all kinds of stuff. Spinifex dance parties at the racecourse as part of the Alice's Wonderland events scenario. And there's Glenn looking very flash in his shirt and tie. There's Rita the Rough Root from Rookwood, who moved into being Viagra Falls. So Karlika and I made sure we had fun as part of all this, like we're trying to create fun for the community, but it was about us also having a bit of fun around the place. Sorry? I'd like a copy of that one, Phil. Yeah, would you? Sure. It's yours. No, we can't. We still can't remember that. And that's just us being silly, as we want to do. This is my family. So Glenn on the right, myself and my brother with his little girl and his wife Pat, and my brother Andrew and Jordan. Jordan's just had her own little baby in the last couple of months, and Jenny's in the back with her partner Darren. Back to mother. She got two look-ins, look at that. Okay. The Beanie Festival. Yes. That was another lovely connection to have landed into, was the meeting Jo Nixon and her former husband Dave. They used to come to Bacon Street from time to time. Jo was an audiologist, and she and Cheryl worked it together, because Cheryl was a counsellor and therapist around hearing programs for kids in schools. So the Beanie Festival was a big part of my life for a long period of time. And there's beanies, and congratulations, Robin Lamley. You get another stint at it, so I'm really pleased for her. And I guess the latest campaign I got involved in was the Yes 23 campaign. And where am I up to? Oh, I stood as an independent candidate in 2012 in the electorate of Greater X, and I stood in 2018 in Breitling electorate. The universe decided that I wasn't meant to be an MLA. I believed otherwise, but hey, you know, you get what you get. But there was a lot of learning that went on with that experience, and I commend anyone who feels passionate enough to want to stand up and be counted, and to promote your community, promote the good stuff. It's about language. I like to focus on positive language, so I'll use the word remember rather than don't forget. As soon as you say don't, the rest's less. And there he is, still here after all these years. Glenn's mum used to say to him, "You said you were going for 6 months." And she'd look at her watch and say, "It's time to come home." So he would go back to Melbourne every so often just to catch up with his mum and dad. And there's Miss Kay and I. It's a solid friendship, and it's lasted a very long time, and it's in an enduring relationship. That's very special. And there we are at the Alice Springs show, most recently. So I'm going to finish up now, because you're probably a bit sick of hearing my voice, and like to congratulate the wonderful Josie Petrick, who's here to share some of her stories 100 years later. An amazing woman. So thank you very much for your time, for your attendance, and I'll look forward to seeing you around town. Thank you. I need to take this off.
I just want to say that if you did a calculation like I did, Phil is turning 70 on Wednesday this week. So if we could just have 3 cheers for this 70-year-old. We know Josie has 30 years up on him, but still. 3 cheers for
Thank you very much.
Happy birthday.
Septuagenarian, here I come.
Obviously knows about parties, this man, so all the best, Phil.
Thanks, Anne.
Yes, we're really honoured to have Josie next, but just in a break for everybody for 10 to 15 minutes, please have a look at Josie's books here too that she's brought along. Many of us know her wonderful place names of Alice Springs, but there's other documents there that just say something about her long and interesting and extremely active life. So please, in the break, take the chance to have a look at it and come back then to be able to share in Josie's long and very interesting life. Thanks, everybody. So, with great pride to introduce Josie Petrick. Stephanie King was her partner in crime there, very proudly also being a torchbearer in the year 2000, when the torch started its journey in Australia out at the Rock, out at Uluru, then came into Alice Springs for a huge and very cold celebration on June the 8th, year 2000. So, Josie, now it's over to you. I'll be your clicker.
Thank you, Anne. Ladies and gentlemen, well, it was all so exciting. In the end of November, September 1999, I got this business-shaped envelope in the letterbox, strictly confidential, personal, and the postmark was Canberra. I thought, what is this? Oh, it must be a stiff driving fine. And what happened to it was that I'd been nominated for the OAM, and would I like to accept it? But I mustn't tell anybody, it must be kept a secret. So the next morning, I had an identical envelope, and I thought, oh, I'll trust the government not to know they really sent me one. Oh, could be the fine. And when I opened it, it said I'd been nominated to carry the torch, which was so exciting, and not to tell anyone. Well, a while later, we had to say I'd carry it from the old timers' home up to the side that says form 1 lane. We had to carry them from a metal post to another metal post because they stuck our numbers on the post So the bus drivers knew where to drop us off and pick us up. They were a distance so they could see them at night time. Well, they've got a letter to say what size costume, small, medium or large, and another one to say, did we want to keep the torch? If so, please send, was it $300? I think it's either $300 or $200 straight away, or else we could just borrow it. So, no, I'll keep it. And so then the time came and we had to be at the Anzac Oval at 2 o'clock, wasn't it, in the afternoon? But it was, the torch was going to start at Ayers Rock. The torch should have started at Sydney, but the Alice Springs tourist man who went to Ayers Rock a lot, John someone, I can't think it was surname, he said it should start at Ayers Rock and finish at Sydney, and he won the day. And Mparntwe started off at 5 o'clock. Were any of you up at 5 and saw Mparntwe? And on the television screen, there was the great rock in the dark. It was pitch dark, and it just looked like a huge bear. And then gradually the pearly light came, and it got lighter and lighter, and you could see people. Then the sky turned a most beautiful apricot, and it was just so exciting to see all the people. And Stephanie was what number are you?
I was 54. There were at least 60 runners with the torches.
Yeah.
I was near the end, near the finish, and facing the east as I finished, facing the rising sun. And I have a photo there of me sort of peering.
I've gone a bit too quickly.
Yeah,
Have you had one of? You were the first picture. There's Stephanie. Stephanie, there's Rock with her number 54. And then the next, then Loie was also at Ayers Rock. And a slow shot. She was the last one at Ayers Rock, and she had to carry up to a little base thing, and then the flame went by in a special case by airplane up to Alice Springs. And I was supposed to run at 5 o'clock from the old timers, and I had to go to the Anzac Oval and collect the torch. And there were thousands of people. I think everyone in Alice Springs, Tennant Creek, and the whole of Territory was there. Cars were bumper to bumper, and there were all the stalls of all the goodies for and souvenirs for the torch. And there were all sort of little vans of every sort of food you can imagine. And then we had to get on the bus. I won't hold the placard, but it's 3 layers, and this represents the Sydney Opera House. Thanks. And the 3 layers of the fire, water, and earth. And our numbers were all of mine. I was number 99, and it's got 54 on hers. Anyway, we had to get on this bus. It was the most awful old bus. There was no heating. The seats were just wooden. It was freezing cold. And off we went down, and we put people off on the way. We went to the airport and dropped off the girl there. She was the School of the Air child who was nominated because every weekend she'd sit at her radio, and so often the tourists came at weekends and went to School of the Air, but there was no class going then. And so they called the station, and this girl would speak to them and tell them she does school on the air, and how far she was and how many cattle they had. And she just brought the whole School of the Air to life for these 4 tourists. And anyway, I got there at 5 o'clock with all these old people, old people. I'm older than they all now. They were all wrapped up in bunny rugs, and it was so cold. And the car was due when the light went. The man would come up at night, number 98 would run up at night, my night, then I'd run up to 99. Well, this was all very well. The car didn't come and the car didn't come. It got colder and colder. We just wearing silly little white shorts. We could have a coat, a friend could come and carry a coat while we ran. And all the running club came in. And this is after I started to run. And this Aboriginal lady suddenly came out of the bush with this beautiful bunch of flowers, can you see? And in front of us was this big flat-topped truck with all the photographers from all over the world, the cameras, this all. And when this lady came up, I thought, oh, I hope there's someone from the Advocate. But the Advocate came the next week and there was no picture. Months later, my daughter came up from Melbourne and she had a picture. Her mother-in-law was in holiday in Darwin, and it was in the Darwin newspaper, and she recognised me. So she cut it out. At the end of her holiday, when she got back to Melbourne, she gave it to Suzette. Suzette gave it to her. Now it's with the private place. This is the next morning, and this is the head boy. I think it was the Milner Road School. And we all had an escort, a boy wearing blue. And I was very pleased to have one because he could hold the flowers then while I ran. And this boy ran part of the way. I don't think he ran all the way down Anzac Hill, and someone else ran the rest of the way. That was the next morning, and ran all around the suburbs. It started with Brakeley and went. But I was telling you about when I was running up to my signboard, then I handed it over. I had the number 900 was a Canadian teacher at Milner Road, I think, on exchange. And so we were so busy hugging each other, kissing each other, hoping the torch won't. We were told there's a little catch at the bottom to hold the catch down when we lit the torch of the next person. But they didn't say, keep the catch down. And so everyone let it out. Did you let yours out?
I don't remember all that. That's the case.
Oh, well, this is why the torch was 2 hours late coming up from Ezra. Perhaps Stephanie was all right, but everyone else let them out. Let them out. And then we walked up, the running club and Olga walked up with me to the next place and up to, they'd floodlit Heavy Gap. And it was absolutely beautiful. You weren't there. All the sort of shades of red and pink in the rock, they just stood out, and then the great gum tree branches and leaves were all reflected, and the sky was dark with the stars shining. It was absolutely spectacular. And when we got to what's the gap? Heavy Gap, an Aboriginal boy who was related to the Aboriginal man who owns Alice Springs had to ask him for permission, but the man who owned Alice Springs wasn't there. So we had to wait half an hour while they found him, and all the journalists were furious. Fancy waiting like this, you know, don't they know? Well. Anyway, eventually the man turned up, and so then we went through, and the bus came, this very cold, smelly bus came, and all the runners got on it, and we rode slowly up Top Mall, and everyone was waving. It was just like a royal procession. We were waving back, and you'd see someone, they go waving to you. And we finally got up to Anzac Oval, and the bus driver said, well, now I've got to lock the drive bus with all you in it, and I've got to go and find somebody, and I'm not sure where I'll find him, to collect all the torches for those who aren't keeping them. So we shivered and shivered and shivered until he came back. Then he opened the gate, and it was so cold. There were so many lights on because the show was waiting to begin. And the lady came up, 2 little girls, and I said, "Is there much of a queue at the coffee store?" "Queue at the coffee store," he said. "There's miles queuing to get dockets. You've got to get a docket to buy whatever you want." So I'm too cold and too tired. And I was flying home to England the next day, and I thought, I'll go home to bed. And I just put the jog on, and I could hear all the fireworks going off in the Oval. And I thought, oh, I'll go to bed. And then the next morning, it ran all around the suburbs and ran to, someone ran all around Traker Park. And then from there, it went somehow magically to the airport, and it flew to Mparntwe, and then it ran a bit up to Darwin, and then down through Western Australia, around to Sydney. Well, ladies and gentlemen, I hope you've enjoyed that. Now, I was at Neutral Junction for 16 years, so it's not too late. I've still got 10 minutes. We'll go to... Oh, this is Alice Springs when I came in 1951. Okay, this is Todd Mall, would you believe it? Where this black car here is just about where ANZ Bank was. And there's some more further up, I think. That double-storey place was a big shop called, what was it called? Not Walcott, the other one. The army officer took it over. Can't think, it was a big everything shop, whatever you wanted, particularly nails and screws and bolts and things. They had all separate little twists. They also had a ladies' wear shop there. And so that was the whole of Alice Springs in Todd Mall then. And Hartley Street was just a school, and the playground, and the other side there was a building for a hostel for the bush children to stay. And the Bar Street was just small houses. And this is before the supermarkets came. So all the business was always in... and that's the Johansson house. You may have heard of the Johansson family. And Kurt was the road train magnate. Then his father was Gerhard Johansson, who was a builder who came up with his wife, Ottilie. And the little girl was 3. And that was my mother-in-law, in due course. And they came up in 1903 for him to build houses. He was a builder in Stockholm down the Brossa Valley. He came up, he had the contract to work and build stockyards and houses and everything else at Hermansburg. So he lived there, and then he worked there, and then he left and took up Deep Well, but he wasn't a farmer. And then he moved to Alice, and he built that most beautiful house. Started with a cellar, and the prisoners used to dig cellars and help around the town. So he dug the cellar before they built the house. And then that cellar was the coolest place in Alice Springs. And when they made the film Overlanders, they did all the developing of the film there, sending it to Melbourne. And the hedge was jasmine, and it was the most beautiful. And everyone, that was bulldozed down at 3 o'clock in the morning, and the National Bank and Moore Medical Clinic was put there, so more or less opposite the AIM hostel. And I got the job as governor's seat, and after I was in Adelaide and I answered an ad, and this led me to come up to be governess to these little children. And these little children, the little girl is now Mrs. Goldsworth there at Bushy Park, and the little boy is Cameron. He runs Gemtree, the stop-off at Gemtree Caravan Park. And the little boy Jock, I'm not quite sure where he is, but he's been around Central Australia doing a lot of grading and that sort of thing. And they were the nicest little children you could imagine. And I was there for the 3 months. This is my home, honeymoon. I married the boy next door, and he lives 60 miles away, Martin Petrick. And that was our honeymoon. We were in the mustering camp. And what's the next one? Oh, can you see the water tank? Can you see that big structure? Well, this is when we first went there, but that was the water supply. And there was a big metal tray on the top of the stand with a 30,000-gallon tank, and a ladder up to the side, of course, and a windmill. And the house was just, well, you could see just almost there. And, it's a bit too quick. And the phone rang, and I was playing with the children, and it was Martin on the phone to tell me the Stuart Arms had burned down the night before, and everyone was out of work and out of everything. A lot of them lost their clothes and everything. The man going to the meteorology office at the airport at 3 o'clock in the morning went down. Todd Street was the main street. Going down there and saw the smoke and flames, ran to the fire station, and they put it out. But Martin said, because he couldn't come up with me for the first week, and he'd asked one of the girls if she'd like to come up, and he said, she's English, so you should get on all right. And so he brought her up, but it was a long phone call, as you'd imagine. I was playing, Suzette was 5, and Grant was 3. And when I came out, Suzette was still on the lawn playing with the ball. This little voice says, "Hello, Mummy. Hello, Mummy. Hello, Mummy. Mummy!" I looked up, there's Mummy. He climbed up the ladder. He was on that little corner of the metal, waving to me. I thought, I can't be cross here and run round the other side. So, "Oh, you clever little boy. Oh, you are so clever." Now walk very carefully back to the ladder, walk down to Mummy. So he did, and so he came skipping down the path. So I found a piece of rope and tied up the gate. And then when Martin came up, I told him. So he unscrewed the bottom section of the ladder. So he threw it down the well. And he said, "Just about I could climb up the scaffolding." As the years ticked by, he found it wasn't as easy. And he said, "Do you know where I put the ladder?" I said, "Yes, you threw it down the ladder." "Well, no, I wouldn't have done that." But he did, he couldn't find it, so he had to climb up the scaffolding. And this is the school. We had a school, and we went there in 1960. At 1964, welfare came and said we had 10 children of school age. One was 4 and one was 14. And if we didn't build a school, they'd have to go to Warrabri. Well, they didn't want that. So we were lucky there was a school at Hatches Creek, which the miners didn't use because it was too much of a nuisance to the miners to go to work at 6 o'clock, then go home, pick up the children, take them to school, then 3 o'clock, pick up the children, take them home. And so they took their wives into doing school of the air, and so then the school was for sale, so we bought the school, and the school was a huge, well, not huge, and so we had a school teacher, here's all the children, and we had Father Christmas when we were living in town when Suzette was 4 and she was going to kindy. And I said, "Oh, eat up your tea, dear, or else Father Christmas won't come." "There isn't a Father Christmas, Mummy." I said, How do you know? Sharon told me. How does Sharon know? She hasn't seen him. So I thought, oh, we were going out to Mount Swan to the family for Christmas. So I thought, I'll make a big thing. And I rang up John Martin's, and of course, when you've got a 4-year-old whenever you're on the phone, they're there. So I asked for the materials and said, I want about 12 yards of some bright red cotton material to make something for someone who comes and sees us at midnight on New Year's Eve. Oh, I know what you want, she said. So this parson came up and put Martin's shirt on the bed, sort of cut round and went on and on and on. Oh, as you could see, it's not a thing of beauty. It made a pixie hat and a big bag. And Father Christmas, then one of the men always dressed up on the station, and the school also had presents. And the next we've got the happy here. We couldn't afford to give all Coca-Cola and all that jazz. So everyone gave me their plastic, all the women gave me their plastic buckets, and I'd fill it with cold water and iron 3 and make Happy Aid. I don't know if you've heard of Happy Aid. It was like sugar crystals flavoured with lemon or raspberry. And they thought that was wonderful. And they'd all come up, but look how nice and tidy and clean they all looked. These were the girls, they came up. And we've got the stockman somewhere. There's all the stockmen say now to give them a Happy Aid, I wonder. But that was all. They were all so quiet. I left in 1976. This is the beautiful beadwork. We had several bead trees. And the girls, when we got there, they were making necklaces, were threading them on old cardigans, and there'd be these bits of coloured wool, And Mona Burns, who started the Winter Sun Caravan Park, she came up and she said, why ever don't you write to John Martin's and send some beads down with the holes in them so they know the size, and ask them to send you up some red cord and hat elastic, and they could make bracelets. So I did this, and as you can see, they did the most beautiful work. They just sit on the ground and have a skirt in front of them and put the different colours. And white person would need a graph square, do it all scientifically. But these girls that's the birds. They work beautifully. And a lady called Mrs. Harvey had a shop in town, and she'd take everything that I could sell. Also a shop in Grenfell Street, Adelaide. They liked it too. Can we have the next one? That was our house. You could just see the old stump walls. This is, in those days, we did everything the hard way. Now they've got big machinery, and the cattle go in there. But where those green trees in the circle, that's where the water tank was, where Grant climbed up when he was 3. This is Neutral Junction. And the next one, that's right place. And one day, Saturday, lunchtime, the phone rang, and this was the developer. And he said he developed 2 new streets off Albrecht Drive, and would I name them? And I said, can I ring you back? On Tuesday I'll have a thing. No, now. I thought, it's got to be, because, we're Albrecht Drive, that had been extended. And then these 2 streets, he said, one is a crescent, and he's put a little park in front of it, and the other's a straight road, and the end houses will have an uninterrupted view of Mount Gillen, all the life no one can build. So I thought, we're going to have women, all the streets are after men, and it's got to be women who knew Pastor Albrecht. And I've just written this book on Caprilia Springs. And can you have the other one, please? There should be one with 2 crescents, isn't it there? Oh, it's a shame. Never mind. The other street I named T Crescent after a lady who helped pastoral brick. Oh, there we are, T Crescent. And we covered it with a violet coloured sheet. Her name was Violet T. And there's that. And I'm wailing it. And the story there is I expect you've all been to Palm Valley and you see the trickling water out of the hills. Well, just a few miles further north is Hermannsburg, and they've got the hills with the water trickling out. They call it Caprilia Springs. And there's a terrible drought about 1951, 21, 22. All the cattle died, and the brews died, and the trees died. The babies, 85% of the babies died. And the adults had the most terrible sores. Pastor Albrecht's little girl of 4, when she was 4, she laid less than when she was 2. And the people south wanted Pastor Albrecht to close up, said the Aboriginals were here first and they can look after themselves. But Pastor Albrecht thought that God sent him out from Germany to help them and he shouldn't leave them. And anyway, the lady came out called Jessie Trail to paint Mount Blatherskite, Mount, what's it called, Hermannsburg. And she went back and told, she came up with a friend called Una Teague, and told them all about this terrible plight. And Una Teague had a sister called Violet Teague, who was a brilliant artist. So she said, oh, we can't have this. We must go and do something. So she hired a taxi from Melbourne in 1922. All the way up, they had to get petrol dumps. Nowhere petrol, just dirt road. There were no bitumen roads, no formed roads. It took them 3 weeks to get to Hermannsburg. And then they stayed, Pastor Albrecht had the only spare bedroom, everyone stayed there. So he took her out to see these springs. And she said, of course we must have water. You can see Hermannsburg down there, you know the water's going to run. So anyway, she went back, or she painted like mad, and asked Pastor Albrecht got Albert Namatjira to be there, everything. You know, cook guide, took them out with camels. And so actually he got his first inkling of watercolour painting from Violet Teague. That was before Rex Batterby came up. And so anyway, when they went back by the taxi, poor boy was only 18, just imagine. And they had this big art show, and then Pastor Albrecht also went out. He had magic lantern pictures of all the drought, and he had an engineer had been through and had given him a detailed map of how they could collect the water and pipe it, and then pipe it down. And Martin knew all the people in the right places, and they were able to get all the piping at a reduced price. And anyway, Una rang up Pastor the Fig River Mission in Adelaide and said, we've got the £3,000 now. So Fig River said, oh, good, we'll send up some more drillers. Said, no, you won't. We're going to have the water. She said, no, we'll send drillers up. But they kept getting salt water. And she said, the money is in my bank account. I didn't put it in your bank. We'll spend the money on the piping. And so that all happened, and it all got piped through. And the pastor worked out that it would come through at 10 o'clock at night. So he had everybody gathered around from the mission. And he turned the tap on, no water. 11 o'clock, no water. 12 o'clock, no water. He was heartbroken. All this money, the mission was right. I should have let them have it. And at 6 o'clock, when the girls go to milk the cows, the water's coming out. They forgot the pipes were full of air, and the water got through at 6 o'clock, hallelujah, and they had this wonderful supply of water, and they grew vegetable gardens, and they all lived happily ever after. So what's the next one? I have to go. Oh, I was in the running club, so it was definitely, that was cross-country 5K. We'd run down from the telegraph station towards St. Philipton, cross the creek, and then back to the lawn. So the next one, thanks. Oh, this is the most amazing story. This dancer was the lead dancer in the Royal Albert Hall in London. And every year, the Royal Albert Hall put out the programme for the year with the lead dancer photograph dancing in her homeland. Well, the dancer this year, was 4 or 5 years ago, was Leanne Benjamin from Townsville. And of course she wanted to dance at Ayers Rock. So they wrote, I'm not sure who they contacted, whether it was Chris Tangi or not, and he said, well, don't come until we've got permission from the elders for where you can dance. So of course they came. They left London in the snow in December and arrived in Alice in 45 degrees. They'd written to Lynn Hampton and said, could she have warm-ups and a shower to change in her dance studio first? And Lynn said, yes, of course she could. But that very morning, she was taking the senior girls to Prague for ballet classes. But her husband would meet them. So this all happened. And they went out to Ayers Rock, and at Ayers Rock, it was that the elders showed them where they could dance, and that didn't suit the dancer or the photographer. So they went over to the Olgas, they showed that didn't suit them. So then it was Chris Tangi, whoever was the go-between, thought road trains, a big icon in Europe. If we could have a road train going around making it dust, and the girl could dance over the dust. So they rang up a firm in Adelaide, a trucking firm. And they said, no, we don't like doing jobs like that. Ring up Grant Petrick, who's my son, who likes doing fiddly things. So they rang Grant, and they went down to the, there's a government strip on Maryvale Station. I can't think what you call it. Can you remember, Lindsay? It's, where they bring the cattle through, and it's no man's land, and they don't have to get permission from anyone. And so I thought, if they could go there, we won't have to get permission. And so they went and they saw those 3 dead trees. And I thought, they were the exact length. Can you see the road train behind? It was the exact length. So the girl, she actually did jump. She jumped 27 times to get the right one. The jump didn't suit the photographer. Poor old Grant, he had to keep going around making this dust, and he was so afraid he kept bobbed. There was no one to help him, no truck to pull him, and the windscreen was covered in sand. He couldn't see. He couldn't put the windscreen wipers on, or it all gone to mud. So he had to go back, and they were all waving to him, and he didn't know what they were saying. Anyway, in the end, it got taken, and that was the cover of the opera programme for that year. And she wrote a book, and Suzette got a copy, and then she said, we got a lorry driver to make dust. A lorry driver to make dust. How to put things simply. What's the next one? How are we over time? Oh, this is my 100th. This is all the family and the grandchildren and the great-grandchildren. This is at Petrick Road. You could see it's the road off Colonel Rose Drive. So there we all are. That was February the 14th last year. Well, ladies and gentlemen, I hope you enjoyed my story as much as I enjoyed telling you.
Oh, let's stand and honour this amazing
We're
woman.
only 10 minutes overdue. Oh, how lovely.